Please welcome Airbnb Vice President of Trust, Margaret Richardson, in discussion with Skift Travel Tech Editor Sean O'Neill.
Good afternoon. Margaret, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having
California.
me.
Yeah. Margaret is Vice President of Trust. So we all know what Airbnb is, but in order to level set on what a Vice President of Trust does. So on a spectrum between someone who is an archbishop who evangelizes being a trustworthy person over to someone who's like involved in project management, looking at data, metrics and stuff, where do you fall?
So it's both and everything in between. The reality of the trust operation at Airbnb is that it includes product technologists, data scientists, operations, policy, communications, all of the elements that would go into being able to inform the world's most trusting community, which is the goal that we're trying to create.
Okay, so let's build on that a little bit. It sounds like the cross-functional role, is that right?
Yes, and the ways in which it is a separate team. It is its own department, but we work very closely with our business colleagues. We have a payments team. We have a customer support team. The homes business, which is the one most people are most familiar with, as well as our experiences business, where hosts are able to share their passions and with guests from around the world. And what the trust team does is work closely with each of these to think about what are the moments where trust can be inspired, and when something is disappointing or doesn't work or there is a safety incident, what are the interventions that we can do to prevent those similar things from happening in the future?
Okay. What does success look like for you for the trust initiatives, against any timeline you have, a year, 5 years?
So we have obviously some specific commitments that we've made recently, and some as recently as today, and delivering on or before the deadlines of those commitments is certainly success.
So let's go with that. So
Sure.
Today you had a blog post that
Yes.
came out. It's very newsy that you're updating the verified listings. So
Yes.
Tell us the highlights there.
Sure. So we have 7 million global listings, and our aspiration is by next year, at the end of next year, we will have reviewed all of those listings and been able to verify those that meet our high quality standards. And we will do that with a combination of technology, our community, and our team members, and making sure that those that are verified are clearly labeled. Today we announced that we also have operationalized our party house ban. The elements of that are that if you are advertising an open party, this is what they used to call it when I was in high school, just anyone can come, it doesn't matter who you are on social media or some other way, those are never permitted under any circumstances, and we will take action to remove those guests and to shut down those parties. If you are renting out a short-term rental in a multifamily building or in a condo, you are not allowed to throw parties there either. In a single-family home, those parties or those events have to be authorized by the host in advance. And that, given the wide variety of listings that we have that meet that criteria, we thought that that was the best way to ensure that those places that are rural and appropriate for gatherings of various size are able to be used in that way. And then, of course, event venues or hotels or other places that are also on our platform that are designed to host those parties are exempt from this. But our goal is to make sure that we are preventing those homes from being misused by protecting our hosts in that way, and then ensuring that guests who would use Airbnb as not to either because they don't have access to a different place or they don't want to ruin their own home, are not able to destroy the property or to cause nuisance for the communities in which our hosts live. And the last piece was an addition to our 24/7 urgent support line, which we announced last month, and our law enforcement portal, where law enforcement's able to interact with us in a secure and designated way. We are expanding our offerings to public officials to make sure that when they have an issue, they are able to contact the right person in Airbnb to deal with that issue in their jurisdiction as quickly as possible. So the idea is to be able to provide support to our community, to their neighbors, to public officials, and to law enforcement.
Okay, at an earlier panel today that came up, the quote-unquote mayor's hotline. What's the timetable for that being operational?
So we intend to have it operational next year. We'll have more details about how cities can sign up and the ways in which we'll be able to operationalize it early in the year.
Okay. Airbnb was already sort of like doing verifications of things like driver's licenses and stuff, and you're obviously not sending out an army of people to look at, snoop around the different homes. So what would be the simple way of characterizing what it is that this whole effort is doing over the next year?
So the goal is for us to make sure that our users are able to have confidence that what they see online is what they will see when they arrive. And the way that we can do that is through our community reviews, making sure that previous guests are able to provide details about what they found when they got there that are, again, we can use team members who can visit or who can help. We have a variety of interventions around our Plus listings where people go out and help with design consultations. They provide insight into how someone might rearrange things to make it more comfortable. And those people, when they're there, can also provide details about the accuracy of the location, the accuracy of that information. And then there are also technological innovations that we'll be continuing to explore. I believe there's a number of people in the room who have startups of various kinds with ideas about how they can help in terms of the verification effort. And our goal is to make sure that we're deploying technology, our community, and our team members in pursuit of this effort.
So to achieve your objectives in trust, do you have the ear of the M&A team at Airbnb? If you needed to have some more resources, would you be able to get them?
Yes, we have not only the remarkable M&A team, our CFO, our CEO, and our board have been tremendously supportive of this work.
Okay, just to drill into this a little bit, because you're a giant online global platform, but a lot of times these issues that create mistrust are granular and they're local. How can you sort of operationalize, how can you use tech, maybe as an example in order to scale that kind of up?
Sure, I mean, even though we are a very big platform, we've had over 500 million guest arrivals, we operate in 191 countries, we're incredibly proud of the scale. The magic of Airbnb is those individual local experiences and being able to ensure that those are in fact magical and that they meet people's expectations is critical. And so the reason that we think that these 24/7 support lines, that the ability for neighbors to be able to also advise us when there are issues and public officials is because we know that if they persist, that it will be a detriment to our hosts, it will be a detriment to the future guests, and it undermines the confidence that communities will welcome future guests into their neighborhoods and into their lives. And that is the point, creating authentic local experiences that otherwise wouldn't be possible. If we don't have trust, none of that is going to continue to flourish.
Okay. In the past couple of months when I've talked to people about Airbnb, one cynical take that comes up is that the company is doing a lot to clean things up to get to the IPO, but there might not be actual fundamental changes to the company. What is something that as I sort of alluded to earlier, what's something that you see as a vision of success on trust that's an initiative that's really going to affect processes, fundamental things, culture?
Well, even just the most recent commitments that we made at the beginning of November, the CEO announced a safety sprint that we really brought together. It was 70 people on a daily call committed to the best ideas and expediting them to ensure that we were able to deliver on the commitments that he had made. The result of that is that roadmaps were torn up. You can imagine how popular that made me. And people were able to reorient the work that was already planned in order to make sure that we were all focused on the most important work. And I think the idea that we will deliver and be able to meet the high expectations that we've set for ourselves is the North Star that everyone wakes up thinking about every day. This is we've shifted away from thinking of this as trust initiatives, meaning the trust team, to these are company-wide commitments that are about the future of who we want to be in the world.
Okay. So one issue for me, all day long we've been hearing about this trend. So originally when Airbnb was founded, you had amateur hosts. Then it became hosts who may have used outside helps with housekeeping. And now today we've been hearing from a whole bunch of companies that are professionally managed, fully branded experiences. But the default user experience for a typical Airbnb listing still has that profile photo and it still has that little bio description. And it creates a problem for professional property managers because, for example, I looked at a listing in Kissimmee, Florida, and it says, "Hi, I'm Pierre. I moved from France, and now I'm renting out hosts. I'm a super host. I have 2,000 reviews since 2018." But if you actually booked and stayed there, you might never meet Pierre because he's just part of a team. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the fundamental UX creates mistrust in a certain sense from a user who is concerned about, am I staying? What kind of experience do I get? I want more on the amateur side or not. Is there anything that Airbnb wants to do besides the Luxe products to try to address that?
Absolutely, and I think our goal, because that's not a great experience if the hosts don't feel like they can demonstrate who they really are as a property management company and reveal their unique personalities in that way as well. Our aspiration is to make sure that we're categorizing listings, so if people want to look for a specific type of experience, a private room, they're able to do that. And we do have some categorization that's already possible, but the UX and the ability to define that differently for the different use cases, I think, is a critical part of the innovation that we will continue to do. We have also, welcomed Hotel Tonight and that over the last year, and we do have hotels on the platform, which obviously are intentionally a very different experience. But if the UX doesn't share that and manage the expectations, I think our main goal is to ensure that guests know what to expect when they arrive, and that those expectations are met or exceeded in every travel experience.
Okay, so to build on that, one thing we heard earlier from Olivier from Booking.com is that in the past couple of months, they've introduced this classification system, so an additional layer of information to understand what you're going to get as a consumer expectation. Would Airbnb sort of consider doing that? Right now on the listings, you get just a star consumer rating.
Yeah, we do have the categorization of, private rooms, hotels, entire places, things like this. And we will continue to make that structured data more usable and thinking about this. We also allow people to search by amenities. So if there are things people really want to be able to do, I think that's, even if it's not one particular kind of home, being able to find places that have a balcony or a view or things like that, I think are the types of things that we want to make sure that you don't miss out on this remarkable experience because what you thought you wanted was not presented to you. And I think we will continue to do more and seek to innovate around the matching of expectations, but we'll also seek to inspire people to take that next step beyond.
Cool. So you previously were Chief of Staff under Eric Holder, Attorney General of the United States and Department of Justice, and for the past 3.5 years you've been at Airbnb and got this promotion to this new role. Here in New York State, the State Attorney General's office has been trying for many years to do their job of enforcing New York State laws. And to do that, they need to get data from Airbnb. And there's been this back and forth tussle about the data. You're not representing the legal team for Airbnb, and I understand that. But you understand as a person from that side, your former professional colleagues, that it's very important in the United States for companies to, be cooperative in terms of doing things. And in this case, Airbnb, sometimes the data is getting called into question of the accuracy, and it's just dragging. Do you have any squeamishness about how some of your colleagues and how you're here compared to how they're going with your professionals in your previous career?
No, I think Airbnb has sought and actually has established partnerships with jurisdictions all over the world. I think we've invented a new way of traveling, and I think this conference is a manifestation of how popular that is. Sometimes the laws and the rules are not in keeping with the innovations of companies and communities, and I think our goal is to make sure that we are working closely with jurisdictions, that we are working with legislators, we're working with mayors to develop and ensure that the rules that for the specific jurisdictions make sense. The other thing that we've done is sought to pay taxes. There aren't a lot of companies in this day and age that say, please tax us. And Airbnb has set up over 500 voluntary collection agreements where we collect on behalf of the hosts from Airbnb and then turn that over to the jurisdictions so they can use it for whatever they want, whatever their community's priority is. And in an era of dwindling resources for cities, I'm very proud of what Airbnb has done to make sure that we are good corporate citizens.
Okay. On the spirit of being proud, so a couple of years ago, Charlottesville was a contentious issue in the news. Can you talk a bit about your Airbnb and how to approach that?
Sure. For the Charlottesville references to the hateful events of Unite the Right and Airbnb was, I believe, the only company that took proactive action to remove listings that were associated with that event. And we did so in partnership and under the advice of our civil rights and civil liberties advisors, and we're able, I think, to prevent people from using Airbnb to promote their hateful agenda. And I think that is the kind of responsibility that I am very proud that Airbnb takes to live its values, to create a world where people can belong. And when people aren't willing to abide by our community commitments, we are willing to forego their business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes logical sense. So, and your position of trust, that will apply also over to hotels, is that right?
Yes.
How will you negotiate that? Because I imagine hotels have their own relationships going on.
Sure, and I think our goal is to make sure that we are being as clear with all of our users, and the hotels are among our users as well. If there are things that they're saying, we don't want you to check that, if over time, as we categorize the types of properties, there are certain verifications that they do, that they're able to provide us with the information and we don't need to be the ones to follow up. Or if they say, look, we've had an issue, we will handle it with the guests, and then we will make sure that we're negotiating those things over time. We're not seeking to do more than our customers and our hosts would like us to do.
Okay. Given your competitive, the trajectory of your career, all the intellectual work that you had to do and competition you had, you're clearly the smartest person I've ever had the honor of interviewing on stage. So I'm sort of interested a bit in knowing what your vision of success is going forward for the trust operation. What is something you're either particularly proud of that you could point to? It's a little more like a tangible thing, but in addition to the announcements you had today, or something you see as something you'd like as a longer-term vision?
Well, I think over the course of my career, my aspiration has always been to underpromise and overdeliver, and so that will be my goal in this role as well. That is a challenge, obviously, given the high expectations we have set, but we have a remarkable team, and continuing to build that team and to build with that team as well as my cross-functional colleagues is what success will look like. I think we were talking a little bit backstage, but the honor of being asked to serve in the role of preserving and enhancing trust is something that I take very seriously. And that commitment to our community is one that if I keep that sense of purpose about what I'm doing every day, as I do, wake up worrying about these things, and then I don't take myself too seriously, I have confidence that we're going to be able to deliver on our commitments.
So purpose and humor.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
So let's go to some audience questions. I kind of don't understand the first one, so I'm going to go to the second one. Trust and guest verification has been mentioned today. Why is it not important for other companies in the vertical?
I'm sorry, so?
The one there on the top, trust and guest verification has not been mentioned yet today. Sorry.
I think this is about other companies.
Okay,
I guess
maybe from other companies.
I would say that it is very important, and obviously this question of verification is one that we think is one that should be expected of the industry. Mm-hmm. Airbnb is hoping to set that standard. So I think that's the question.
Okay. Next one, regulations are increasing at an alarming level, mainly due to the lack of communication with guests. Will Airbnb commit to work with other large players about the regulations?
Absolutely, and actually that goes to, I think, I'm not in the policy team anymore, but we had been seeking in a jurisdiction-specific way to work with some of our industry colleagues. We also, I think even more urgently on the trust side, would invite other short-term rental platforms and hospitality providers to join us, because the safety of all of our travelers is the most important, and that should be something we can all work together on.
Okay. We have a question here. The host protection insurance terms are very vague and the details are not even public. What can Airbnb do to increase the trust in its insurance?
I certainly being more forthcoming about what we do. We do have $1 million guarantee, host guarantee, and the details of that are on our website. I think if people haven't been able to find it, maybe we can work together to make sure that it's publicized and we can feature it going forward. Our aspiration is not only that our hosts feel confident, but they also know if the unfortunate happens, that Airbnb has their back.
One of the complaints that sometimes owners have is that there's not a separate line for professionally managed rooms and professional managers. They're giving you more volume, they're more professional operation, they should have a separate kind of hotline. Have you ever considered having that?
Yes, and I think on our customer support, we do have managed accounts for some of our professional hosts. It's not all of the property managers, but if there are people who would be interested in being in that category who aren't, we're very happy to follow up.
Airbnb provides an inconsistent level of customer care. What are your plans to improve it?
Well, that's a part of what these commitments are about. Our aspiration is that every time someone calls or every time someone has an incident, we are able to make it right. And our goal, of course, is to prevent bad things from happening, to detect them when they are, and to respond when the unfortunate does happen. I think being able to ensure the guest guarantee, which is the making it right, or rebooking someone or refunding them if they aren't, that work is underway, and so our aspiration is that we will continue to improve in that respect.
And last question here. This came up at the Vacation Rental Managers Association conference as well. When it comes to trust, are you more getting dispute cases resolved is like pulling teeth. This is something that property managers sort of say, and that when it comes to a dispute between the guest and the property manager, the guest there's a little thumb on the weight of the scale there.
So I think that, obviously our goal is to get it right, and one of the things that we've done in other contexts is try and separate the experience and deal with them. The guest needs to have their vacation preserved, and the host needs to be treated fairly. And I think trying to mediate them in real time may be part of the challenge. Instead, separating them and dealing with them separately is a way that we can make that more expeditious and effective.
Okay, Margaret, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you.